The wind carried the last of autumn across the plains like a whispered farewell. It pulled at the brittle stems of grass, coaxed dry leaves into dance, and pressed cold palms against the windows of the one-room schoolhouse where Donna Benton stood, watching the world empty itself of color. Inside, the room was still, too still, as if even the desks had given up waiting for children. She moved slowly between the rows, fingers grazing the worn wood, each groove a memory etched by restless hands and hopeful hearts. The blackboard bore faded traces of a lesson unfinished, arithmetic no longer needed by a town that had decided learning was a luxury. Donna took a damp cloth and wiped it clean, the motion final, like sealing a letter no one would read. She closed the shutters, one by one, their hinges groaning like tired bones. The last of the firewood lay in a quiet pile by the stove, untouched. No one had brought more in weeks. The stove was cold now, its iron belly hollow. Her blue shawl, hand-stitched from scraps of her late husband's uniform, hung loosely over her shoulders. It carried the scent of lavender and ashes. She wore it not for warmth, but for memory, her only companion in the slow unraveling of her days. Donna stepped outside. The schoolhouse door creaked behind her and clicked shut with a sound too loud for so quiet a world. The sky above was pale and endless. A crow cawed in the distance, its cry cutting the silence. She walked the narrow path toward her cabin, boots crunching the frost-bitten earth. The town loomed far behind her, a cluster of buildings that had grown colder than the coming snow. Once, they'd welcomed her with baked pies and nods of polite respect. But after Thomas died and she took up the school post without a man to shield her, the warmth faded. Whispers bloomed like thistle, too bold, too soft, too strange. The final blow came when she refused to turn away 2 children of Lakota and settler blood. Not fit to teach, they said. Best move on. But she hadn't. She stayed. She stayed because no one else would teach them. Because she didn't know where else to go. Because a part of her still believed a fire could be lit even in a cold room. That belief was shrinking now, curled up like paper near a dying ember. The cabin greeted her with silence. The roof sagged slightly from the last storm, and the door stuck on its frame. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The room was tidy in a way only necessity could make it, each item in its place, no room for excess. The hearth was empty. Her fingers ached with cold. She knelt and lit a small flame from the last of the oil. It danced for a moment, fragile and uncertain. The shadows stirred, then settled. Supper was a heel of bread and boiled nettle tea. She sat on the wooden stool, hands wrapped around the warm tin mug, and stared into nothing. They hadn't said it directly, the townsfolk, but the message was clear. There would be no supplies sent her way, no firewood, no food. No one would fetch her when the snow deepened. They expected her to leave, or to stay and vanish, quietly, properly, without spectacle, like a story no one told anymore. She could feel it in the way their eyes slid past her in the mercantile, in the way Reverend Pike avoided her in the street. Even Eli Branson, who once promised to marry her before Thomas returned from war, now passed by as though her face had blurred. He had said it gently, at first. You need a man to survive out here, Donna. And then, sharper. Some of us don't want trouble. She smiled bitterly at the memory. Trouble, it seemed, was being a woman who wouldn't lie down and disappear. The candle guttered. She pulled her shawl tighter and moved to her desk, where a half-used journal waited beside a stub of pencil. It had been Thomas's. He used to write letters he never sent, things he couldn't say aloud. She'd taken up the habit since his death, writing notes to the silence. Her hand trembled as she wrote. November 16th. They will not return. I believe I am meant to vanish here, but I do not wish to die. Not yet. She paused, pencil hovering. If someone ever reads this, know that I tried. I tried to be kind. I tried to teach. I tried to be what this place needed. But the wind is louder than my voice, and the cold more faithful than any friend. The candle flickered out. The room deepened into darkness, but Donna did not rise. She sat still, listening to the moan of the wind and the brittle sigh of the wood. A sound broke through, the lightest scuff of snow against the doorframe. Her heart leapt. She turned sharply. But it was only the wind rearranging what little life remained outside. She moved to the bed, wrapped herself in quilts too thin for the night to come, and watched her breath curl in the air like ghost smoke. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. A reply echoed back, low and near. She closed her eyes. Her final thought was not of the town or of the ones who left her. It was of the children who had trusted her, of their dark eyes wide with wonder as she told stories, their small fingers clutching books too big for their laps. She whispered their names like a prayer. Then the snow began to fall, slowly, softly, as if it were tucking her in. The snow arrived not with fury, but with silence. It fell in the hush of early morning, when the sky turned a pale, aching gray, and the world beneath seemed to hold its breath. Flake by flake, it covered the plains, softened sharp edges, buried broken things, and erased paths not recently walked. By the time Donna stirred beneath her threadbare quilts, the cabin had grown cold as bone. Her breath rose in misty tendrils. She sat up slowly, joints stiff, shoulders curled inward against the chill. The fire was long dead, the last log reduced to a heap of exhausted ash. She wrapped her shawl around her shoulders, stood, and nearly stumbled from the wave of weakness that swept through her. 3 days now, maybe 4, she'd eaten only a few spoonfuls of boiled cornmeal and the last of the root vegetables gone soft in the cellar. She hadn't kept track. Hunger blurred time into fog. The wind sighed through the gaps in the cabin wall, slipping between the boards like an old ghost searching for a name. Donna pressed her hand to the window pane, now rimed in ice. Outside, the prairie was vanishing beneath white. No tracks led to her door. No chimney smoke from neighboring cabins. The town had turned its back, and now winter did the same. She pulled on her boots, their soles thin and worn, and opened the door. The cold struck like a slap, fierce and intimate. Snowflakes swirled in the wind. Tiny feathers caught in a breathless current. She stepped outside anyway. The cold might take her, but staying inside would only make it slower. She walked, past the stilled schoolhouse, past the frozen trough and fence line leaning with age. Her legs trembled, her breath rasping. She called out once, not a name, just sound, but it vanished before it could travel. The weight of the snow pulled at her coat. Her vision narrowed. The wind howled louder, less like weather and more like morning. She didn't feel herself fall, only that the sky turned away and the ground rose to meet her. Donna's body crumpled beneath a spruce tree at the edge of the wild, her frame slight, hair loose across her cheek, breath soft and shallow. The snow did not stop falling. Hours passed. The day dimmed into dusk, that quiet hour where the sun has not yet died, but the night begins its claim. And in that blue-shadowed moment, a figure moved through the trees. He rode alone, as he often did. A tall man with a face carved by wind and time, skin the color of canyon stone, eyes sharp and steady beneath a fur-lined hood. The horse beneath him was coal-dark and sure-footed. Tahu had not intended to ride this far. He'd been hunting, silent, efficient, respectful of the land. A rabbit hung at his saddle. He followed no road, only instinct, and the quiet signs the earth left behind. But something had drawn him here. A disturbance in the pattern. An absence where there should have been presence. The horse halted near the tree line, ears twitching. Tahu's gaze fell to the snowdrift beneath the spruce. A patch of blue. A shape too still. He dismounted without haste, approached carefully. Snow clung to her eyelashes. Her lips slightly parted. One hand lay in the drift, the fingers red with cold. She was not yet gone. He crouched beside her and placed 2 fingers at her neck. A pulse, faint, fluttering, like a bird pressed beneath water. He touched her cheek. Her skin, though chilled, held a trace of warmth beneath the surface. Tahu did not speak. He never wasted words where action would do. He lifted her with a gentleness that seemed at odds with his size. Her head lolled against his shoulder. The horse nickered softly as he mounted with her in his arms. They rode back through the snow in silence. His camp was not far, a modest shelter tucked beneath the lee of a hill, built of logs and hide, smoke trailing from a flue. He laid her on the furs beside the fire, stoked the flames higher, and set stones to heat near her limbs. He stripped off her damp coat, her boots, tucked her beneath blankets, still warm from his rest. Her lips were cracked, her brow hot. Fever had already begun its work. Tahu brewed willow bark in a tin pot and fed her sips between murmured breaths. She did not wake, but her fingers twitched in dreams. All night he watched her. Outside, the wind wept and the snow deepened. By dawn, the storm passed, leaving the world wrapped in silence and white. Donna stirred. Her lashes fluttered. She turned her face toward the warmth and whispered something, soft, too slurred to catch. Tahu didn't answer. He only placed another log on the fire and set a basin of snow to melt. For the first time in days, the cabin held life. And still, neither of them knew the other's name. The sun rose slowly, uncertain in its light. And far off, unseen by either of them, faint tracks led from the spruce tree to the shelter. Just footprints in the snow, already beginning to fade. Morning light spilled across the cabin floor in a soft golden ribbon, warming the worn wood where Donna's hand rested. She stirred beneath the furs, the scent of smoke and pine surrounding her. Her throat was dry, lips cracked, and limbs sore as if she'd been held underwater and carried back. For a long moment, she didn't move. She only listened. No voices, no clamor, just the crackling of fire and the quiet murmur of wind pressing gently against the walls. Then a shape, still and silent. A man. He sat across the room on a low stool, whittling a piece of cedar with the calm focus of someone used to stillness. His hair was dark, tied at the nape, his posture easy but alert. Lines traced his face like riverbeds, weathered, solemn, watchful. Donna's breath caught. Her fingers twitched beneath the blanket. He didn't look up, but she sensed he knew she was awake. She tried to speak, but only a rasp came out. He stood without a word and poured water from a tin kettle into a wooden cup. He held it out to her. She hesitated, then took it with both hands. The warmth shocked her, aching as it spread through her chest. "Where?" she began. "You were in the snow," he said quietly. His voice was low and rough, not unkind. "You nearly didn't come back." She nodded slowly. 1,000 questions tangled behind her lips, but none escaped. He returned to his stool. The rhythm of the blade resumed, steady, soft, like breath. Outside, the snow gleamed under a cloudless sky, thick and undisturbed. The world had gone quiet, sealed in frost. Days passed like this. He would leave early, returning with fish or snares full. She watched from her pallet as he cleaned them with careful hands. She tried to help once, stood too soon, nearly fell. He caught her, without comment, set her down again, and returned to work. At night, he cooked simply, roasted meat, roots warmed on stones, pine tea. They shared the food, without speech. Words felt too sharp for such a soft space. Donna healed slowly. The fever ebbed. Her strength returned like spring beneath the snow, quiet, persistent, unnoticed until suddenly there. She spoke more, not at him, but into the air, as if to remind herself that her voice still worked. She recited nursery rhymes, fragments of poems, stories once read to children in the firelight. He didn't interrupt. Sometimes he would pause his carving, listening without turning his head. It became a kind of rhythm, his silence making room for her sound. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the pines, she looked over the carved shapes that had begun to collect on the shelf. Small animals, a bird in flight, a horse mid-gallop, a schoolhouse, its tiny windows cut with care. "You made these?" she asked. He gave a short nod. "They're beautiful." Still, he said nothing. But she saw something shift in his eyes, an almost smile, quickly gone. She told him her name, Donna Benton. He waited a beat, then said, "Tahu." She let the name settle between them like an ember. Later, she asked where he came from. He only answered, "North of the river." Before. That was enough. There was a gentleness to him not born of softness, but restraint. Donna could sense the weight he carried. Not heavy in his step, but in the stillness between movements, like a man who'd learned not to take more than needed, or speak more than asked. One night, as the fire wore low, she spoke of Thomas, Her husband, buried in a faraway field. His name carved into a stone she'd never seen. He was brave, she said. But not for me. For country. For duty. I don't think he ever really saw me. Tahu didn't look up, only set down the feather he'd been shaping. After a long pause, he said, "Some men see the world clearer when they stop trying to own it." Donna looked at him, surprised. Not by the thought, but by how much it felt like something she'd once needed to hear. She felt herself unfurling, day by day. Not blooming, she was not young, not new, but warming, like coals finding breath again. She mended his shirts, careful not to overstep. He left his tools out for her to use. They fell into a quiet partnership. Two people, neither lost nor found, simply continuing. One morning, while she stirred the fire, she caught him watching her. Not with hunger or pity, but attention. As if her every movement meant something. As if she was no longer a ghost in her own life. It startled her more than any rifle shot. She dropped the iron spoon. He bent to pick it up, and when their hands brushed, she felt the heat of his palm through the cotton. Neither moved away. "I thought I was done with being seen," she said, so softly it nearly didn't escape. "You weren't," he answered. The silence that followed was not awkward. It was reverent. They sat by the fire long after the stew had cooled, listening to the wind outside. No longer mourning, just moving. In the distance, a wolf called out. A second replied. Donna turned to him, her voice steady now. "Do you think the world would let me live out here? With no town, no name they respect?" He considered this, then said, "It's not about the world. It's about whether you want to live or just survive." And for the first time in years, she didn't have to answer right away. The fire snapped. The night deepened. Outside, the snow began to fall again, but softer now, as if the land itself had exhaled. The smoke reached them first, a gray thread unraveling through the pines, rising against the pale sky. Tahu spotted it before Donna did. He stood at the cabin threshold, still as a carved figure, eyes narrowed. Donna followed his gaze, her pulse beginning to thrum in her ears. It wasn't the steady curl of campfire or hearth. This was sharp and sudden, the kind of smoke born from urgency. She stepped beside him, wrapping her shawl tight against the wind. Far off, where the trees gave way to open land, movement stirred. Dark shapes against snow, drawing closer. Riders. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Tahu moved quickly, dousing the fire and pulling the door shut behind them. Donna's heart beat a ragged rhythm as she gathered her few possessions, a tin of tea, the wooden schoolhouse carving, her journal. She paused at the hearth, eyes lingering on the warmth they'd shared, then turned away. By the time the riders came into full view, the snow had begun to fall again, light, deceptive, as if the sky meant peace. 5 of them. She recognized 3. Reverend Pike rode in front, his black coat flapping like a preacher's shadow. Behind him, Mr. Lawson, the man who'd signed her dismissal from the school board. And then Eli Branson. Eli had once held her hand in the orchard behind her cabin. He'd said she laughed like June light. He'd also been the first to disappear when her husband died, and the first to cast his stone when she stayed behind to teach children no one wanted. They dismounted a few paces away. No greeting, no pleasantries. Only that old, metallic silence that came before judgment. "You're alive," Reverend Pike said, as though it were a sin. Donna stood tall, though her knees felt brittle beneath her. Tahu said nothing, but stayed close, silent, steady. Lawson cleared his throat. "We heard someone's been keeping the schoolteacher alive. Thought we'd come see if it was true." Donna didn't answer. Let them say what they came to say. Eli stepped forward, his hat in hand, his eyes flickering like someone half sorry and half furious. "You could have come back to town, but instead you let yourself be kept." Donna's voice, when it came, surprised even her. Clear, measured. "No one kept me. I survived." He helped. Pike scowled. "You're living out here with one of them." He glanced at Tahu, as though he were something wild and dangerous. "There's still time to make things right, Donna. Come back. Teach the proper children. Restore your name." "My name doesn't need restoring," she said. "You just stop saying it." Eli stepped closer, We brought supplies. Enough to get you through winter. But only if you come back now. Alone. Tahu's jaw tightened, but he still didn't speak. And if I refuse? Lawson shrugged. Then you're no longer our concern. Next time a storm rolls in, don't expect help. Don't expect a grave, either. The threat lingered like smoke between them. Reverend Pike reached into his saddlebag and tossed something into the snow. It landed with a soft thud, metal flashing once in the weak light. Donna stepped forward and saw it. Her locket. The one with Thomas's picture. She hadn't realized it was missing. Eli's voice was quieter now, but not gentler. You're not who you used to be. No, Donna said. I'm not. She bent, picked up the locket, brushed the snow from its face, and tucked it into her pocket. That's your answer, then? Pike asked. It is. They left without another word, their hooves cutting deep into the snow, leaving a trail that vanished as quickly as it was made. When they were gone, Donna stood motionless. Her chest ached, not from fear, but the old wound of being cast aside again. She'd expected it. But expectation didn't dull the sting. Tahu walked to her, his hand open. In it, a small twig of cedar, freshly carved. A school bell. She took it, her fingers curling around the tiny piece of wood. I should be afraid, she said. But you're not, he replied. No, she said. Not of them. That night, they didn't speak much. The fire was warm, but the silence had grown heavier. Tahu stood near the door, watching the darkness as if it held answers. Donna watched him, studying the set of his shoulders, the way he stood like a man always waiting to be asked to leave. I don't want you to go, she said, suddenly. He turned to her, surprised. You think I would? He asked. I think you've left many places before. People too. Tahu nodded. Sometimes leaving is the kindest thing. But not now. No, he said. Not now. Later, as the wind quieted and the firelight danced across the walls, he sat beside her. She took his hand without ceremony. His fingers, calloused and warm, wrapped around hers like they'd done it 100 times before. There was no need for promises. No confessions. Just presence. And then, in the stillness between breaths, he leaned forward and kissed her. Not hungrily. Not possessively. Gently. Like a man who knew what it meant to lose and still chose to love. Donna closed her eyes. She let the warmth flood her, not from fire or flesh, but from the simple, breathtaking fact of being wanted, not for what she'd endured, but for who she still was. When they finally pulled apart, there was no awkwardness. No fear. Only a shared breath and the soft rhythm of the world carrying on. She touched the carved bell again, its tiny form smooth in her palm. Let them come, she thought. Let the town forget her name. Let them burn what they feared. She had not been saved. She had survived. And she had been seen. The thaw came slowly, like forgiveness. Snow receded from the hilltops first, then the flat of the valley, where the grass returned in cautious strands. Streams began to run again, pushing past the ice that had bound them. Trees wore buds like secrets, not yet ready to bloom. Even the wind changed its song. Less mourning, more breath. Inside the cabin, Donna stood near the window, watching the first crocuses push their way through the earth. Her fingers were stained with ink and dirt, and her blue shawl now bore small patches where she'd mended it with fabric from Tahu's worn shirts. It no longer looked like mourning. It looked like a life remade. She had begun teaching again, first Tahu, who already knew more than he admitted. Then the orphan boy from a homestead west of the ridge. Then 2 girls with mothers too tired to say no. The schoolhouse had no desks left, so Tahu carved more, 1 each week. Quietly, lovingly. His hands, once built for bow and blade, now shaped futures from pine. They didn't speak of the town much, but it spoke of them. Rumors, like weeds, took root again. Whispers returned on boot heels, some bitter, some curious, a few laced with old guilt. Still no one came. Until they did. It was near dusk, the horizon burning gold and blood. Donna was gathering books when Tahu stepped inside, his face unreadable. They're coming. How many? 5. Maybe 6. All men. She didn't ask who. She already knew. The townsfolk, had not taken kindly to her refusal. And now, with her living as she pleased, with who she pleased, something in them had stirred to action. A need to reclaim what they had lost, not her, but control. "Do they have rifles?" she asked. "Yes." She nodded, her heart a steady drum. "Then I'm not hiding." Tahu didn't argue. He simply began to move, a blade strapped to his belt, though she knew he would use it only if there were no other way. He wasn't a violent man. He was a man who had survived violence and come through gentle. That was rarer and braver. She donned her shawl, braided her hair, took the locket from the shelf and slipped it into her pocket, not for protection, but for remembering. She had been someone's widow. She had been forgotten. And now, she was something else entirely. They waited outside as the men rode in, kicking up dust that hung in the evening light like ghosts called back for reckoning. Eli was among them. Of course he was. His face, once flushed with charm, now pinched with resentment. "Still playing teacher?" he called, his voice tight. "Still pretending to be a man?" Donna replied calmly. He sneered. The others dismounted, moving with the clumsy tension of people unused to facing those they'd condemned. One carried a rifle, another a torch not yet lit. "We warned you," said Reverend Pike. "You were given a chance. And you gave me your silence when I needed anything but—" "This is a Christian town," one muttered. Donna stepped forward. "Then act like it." Tahu stood beside her, arms loose at his sides. No weapon drawn, just presence, calm and unshaken. Eli raised his rifle. "You've embarrassed me long enough." Donna didn't flinch. "Is that what this is about? Your pride? You think we'll let you rewrite the order of things? A woman living out here, with him, teaching half-breeds." Tahu's eyes narrowed, but he didn't move. His stillness was sharper than any blade. "We are not rewriting anything," Donna said. "We're remembering what you forgot." Eli stepped forward, aiming now. The others hesitated. Doubt crept into their stances. Donna's voice did not rise, but it rang like iron struck clean. "You left me to die." He didn't. "You cast out children. I welcome them. You claim righteousness, but you ride with fire." Eli's hands trembled on the rifle stock. "You're not the victim here," she said. The torchbearer shifted uncomfortably. "We shouldn't be doing this." "No," Pike said. "We should have done it sooner." Tahu's voice broke through then, low and clear. "Enough." The rifle jerked toward him. But before Eli could move again, a single sound pierced the moment. The sharp, innocent ring of a bell. From behind them, down the path leading from the schoolhouse, came the clear tones of laughter. Children, 3 of them, holding hands, walking toward the cabin, unafraid. One of the girls clutched the wooden bell Tahu had carved, ringing it like a greeting. The men froze. The children stopped a few paces away, looking up at the adults with the blunt honesty only the young possess. "Miss Donna," said the youngest, "are these men lost?" Donna smiled gently. "Yes, sweetheart. I think they are." Pike turned away, shamed. Eli's rifle lowered, but not in surrender. In disbelief. His face cracked with something that looked like fear. "You've turned them against us. I've shown them there's another way." Tahu stepped forward, finally, and stood between Donna and the men. "This is the last time," he said. "Do not come again." There was nothing in his tone but finality. Eli spat in the dirt, but it sounded like defeat. He turned and mounted his horse, the others following. No flames, no shots, only hoofbeats fading into the dusk. When the dust settled, Donna let her breath out slowly. The children ran to her. She knelt to greet them, one on each shoulder, one tugging her sleeve. Tahu watched from a few feet away, a quiet curve to his lips. Later that evening, after the children had been sent home with jam and stories and reminders to come early for class, Donna and Tahu sat beneath the stars. The world felt larger again, but no longer empty. He took her hand. She leaned into his shoulder. "You were brave," he said. "I was tired of being silent." They watched the fire crackle in its pit, its light dancing across their faces. Not the desperate heat of survival anymore, but warmth chosen, built, tended. She looked at him and saw not the man who found her in the snow, but the one who stayed through every thaw, every silence, every storm. "I think of the fire that stayed," she said softly. Tahu looked at her, not just with love, but with something deeper. Recognition. "Yes," he said, "we are." And far off in the prairie, the wind carried their quiet triumph, like a hymn not meant to be sung loudly, but remembered.